Maul Shadow Lord, Episode 4, Inquisition, does an amazing job of making you fear the Inquisitors, more so than probably any other show, or I was going to say, I guess games. They are in the Jedi Fallen Order games, but I don't actually know how well that sets up something to be feared, because I've never really played or looked at them. But certainly better than Rebels, from what I remember. Rebels doesn't do a terrible job. Haven't watched Kenobi either, but I doubt that did anything well from anything I've heard about it. Meanwhile, Shadow Lord sets up the Inquisitors, or specifically Marok, as a force to be feared. You do not tango with Marok. Well, actually, that's not true. You do tango with him, but he will find you. He will hunt, and he will hunt you down. But back near the end of episode 3, before the Empire had even descended, Maul had warned Devin, have you ever encountered a Jedi hunter? Are you prepared for what they can do? Already teasing and seeping into little tendrils of, like, ooh, there's scary people out there that you need to be ready to deal with. And, well, yeah, of course. At the end of episode 4, we find out that Two Boots has called down the Empire upon Janix. Why did I forget the name for a moment? I don't know. I did. Anyways, yeah, so Two Boots called the Empire down upon Janix. And then and then we hear that then they come into the police station where Chief Tleiss gets taken off to interrogation after an unknown amount of time. We see some people leaving the interrogation room with her badge and handing it over to the Imperial Lieutenant, who calls over Captain Lawson and tells him to go into the interrogation room. And then Lawson goes into the interrogation room and he looks at the table and sees that there are fingernail scratch marks in it, which is such good setup. We haven't even seen Marok yet, and yet we know that the being who's about to appear behind Lawson is a man to be feared, a man to be reckoned with. And then they reveal him slowly. First off, we get the shot from I was going to say killer, he's not really killer, but we get the shot from Marok's perspective briefly as we see him looming up. We see of a camera looming over Lawson. Then the camera cuts to below Lawson. So now we are even lower and Lawson looking up at Marok, who then puts his hands on Lawson, pushing him down a bit. And then the camera zooms into Marok's face as he says, "Tell me everything." And that introduction is one of the greatest introductions to any character ever. Possibly the best character introduction of this show? Yeah, I think it is. I can't think of any better. I guess Vader's introduction was pretty good, but I don't think it's quite as good as Marok's was. Yeah. The reason why is Vader's introduction is more immediate and punchy, like out of nowhere. Not quite, but it's very much, poof, here's Vader, now you got to deal with him. Whereas this is just so much build-up, setting up the fear that this man is about to drop as he then descends upon Lawson. And he terrifies him. And then we see that he is interrogating Lawson for quite a while, and Lawson tells him not quite everything, because he does leave out about the two Jedi who he knew were there and talked to. And he also, I believe, at least it's implied, that he leaves out the fact that Maul offered him a deal, because he says something like, I don't know why I was left alive. Or I think he just says, I got lucky and that's how I lived. When Maul had almost literally ordered his people to let them live. Or rather, to let him live. Then the next time we catch up with Marok, he has arrived at the scene of the battle at the end of episode 4. And he goes in alone, leaving the stormtroopers out to guard the entrance of all sorts. As he goes in, he looks around, he senses what's going on. he sees the communication device that Maul had given to Vario to present to Lawson, and he pushes it aside to see what's going on around it. And he's clearly showing that there was more to this than Lawson had told me. Marok then goes up into the or rather, he sees that something's gone on up to the side where Maul and the Jedi were fighting. So he then goes up there. He sees a lightsaber cut in the ground. He senses it with the Force, running his hand through it. And as he does, we hear the echoes of the fight, because Marok clearly has telemetry, I think is what it's called. I don't remember. The ability that Quinlan Vos uses in the Clone Wars to see past events or sense past events. And he's clearly using that here to sense what's going on. He sensed that the Jedi were here, that then they were fighting Maul. He then looks over at the wall where he sees some more lightsaber marks. He senses through that as well, and senses more of what was going on here. He's piecing together that what Lawson hasn't told him, which is, of course, that the Jedi are here. And he does all of this investigation bit completely silent, because he does not need to speak. And a lot can be said about characters who don't need to speak. Hell, this entire show is built off of Darth Maul, who was set up as someone absolutely terrifying, with 3 lines of dialogue or something like that in The Phantom Menace. And I feel like Marok is, in a way, channeling that energy that Maul showed off there. The silent but powerful being that you must fear. And this might be a good idea for video paralleling Maul and Marok. Don't really have a full concept there, but yeah, something that I might end up doing. Anyways, yes, Marok then goes up. He senses, or wherever he's gone up, he sensed everything that he needs to do within this fight area, but he can tell that Lawson was lying. So we then cut back to Lawson, who's just sitting around impatiently in a cell, or interrogation room rather, and Lawson then gets let out to go back to his home, because Marok clearly believes in some way letting Lawson will lead them to the Jedi. Either he will go find the Jedi, or the Jedi will go find him. Of course, the latter there is true. None of that is, of course, actually stated, but given that is, well, quite frankly, what happens as Marok shows up at the Lawson's home, cutting down the door once he's ascertained that the Jedi are there. I think it's a pretty reasonable guess that is what was going on. Then, of course, later on we're in episode 6 now, by the way. Later on in episode 6, after the heroes have managed to escape from Marok, and then they manage to go to the casino where they get chased down by the clone stormtroopers. Then they go down the elevator, and Devin and Riley see Marok there, and Marok turns to face them, having sensed their presence. And they then flee down into a train station, as then Marok chases them down slowly and methodically as he arrives. And right before he arrives, we see him descending, and all we see is his shadow cast by the glow of his red lightsaber as he's walking down. And that is how we first see his arrival here. Excellently done. And, well now, that is how Shadow Lord makes the Inquisitors feared in this show. It is not through their combat capabilities, which honestly are rather lacking, and I wish they did better, but through the sheer force of presence and ability to find the Jedi, ability to tell what is lying, their ability to absolutely cripple anyone with fear. Later on in the show, when the 11th brother is interrogating Riley says later on that he would have told the 11th brother anything. And quite frankly, it shows the sheer force of will that Lawson had, that he was able to lie to the Morlock, even if it was an unsuccessful lie. He was able to hold on to the truth because he was so well disciplined and strong, and even he was broken in a way by it, and forced to say more and reveal more than he should have in reality. But then we see Morlock's investigation skills are supreme, as he's able to just figure out and ascertain everything that he needs from just looking around the battlefield, piecing together all that he needs. He knows what he needs to do. He needs to let Lawson go, to bring the Jedi, or to track down the Jedi, and that will be successful. Chef's kiss. Morlock is excellent. As for what's next up, well, as I mentioned last week, which, by the way, guys, go watch last week's video. It's a good one. I like that video, but nobody's watched it. Except for me, my own views that I do to try and boost the engagement on the video by making it look like people actually want to see it. But nobody's watched it. Why? The previous video to that was insanely well viewed. It's got over 100 views, which is like more than my next four combined. And then this one gets nothing. Watch it, please. It's a good video. Anyways, as I mentioned in that video, as I mentioned in that video, up next will be a video about Maul's Mandalore, and how it's probably not as bad as people make it out to be, or think it out to be. And, well, if you want to see what's after that, go watch my previous video, boost the engagement on it. But it's going to be a good video, I hope. It's going to be a big video, that's for sure.